Denise Fraser. I'm a senior extension associate at SEDEC, which is the Community and Economic Development Initiative of Kentucky. And I'm also the project coordinator for Create Bridges in Kentucky. Create Bridges is a program that aims to strengthen businesses in retail, accommodations, tourism, and entertainment sectors in rural communities. Phase 1 states include Arkansas, Kentucky, and Oklahoma, and Phase 2 states are Illinois, New Mexico, and North Carolina. We've come together to host this webinar series aimed at providing tips, tricks, and tools to small business owners. I'm really pleased to introduce Natalie Kinney Marquez. She's the owner of Grow Marketing Communications, LLC, a firm that provides business development, marketing, branding, and communication support. Natalie has a double major in journalism and advertising and political science from Southern Illinois University Carbondale and a master's of public administration from the University of Illinois, Chicago. With that, I'm going to turn it on over to Natalie.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me this morning. It's a pleasure to be here. I'll share my screen and we will get started. I'm going to see if I can make this full screen. Or I might just go right as this. That way I don't lose my cursor here, if that's all right. So we're going to talk today about brand awareness and how that relates to marketing. So if you've been wondering how you can improve your marketing efforts, reach more potential customers and specifically the right customers, get more sales and increase your brand awareness, then a brand audit might be just what you need. And I love working with small businesses on brand audits because I think it's the foundation first step in a great marketing strategy. In this presentation, I'm going to take you through steps to conduct a brand audit on your own and also take back and work on with other key individuals in your small businesses. And the result is that you're going to have a strategy that you can move forward with in order to help improve your brand awareness. So let's get started. Whoop, we went too far forward. Sorry, I'm using a PDF here instead of a PowerPoint, so we'll see how this works out this morning. So why do you need a brand audit? Maybe it's because your marketing efforts are not producing the results you want. That's probably why you're here. Or that your website traffic is low, or that your email open rate is poor. Or maybe that your sales have dropped off, but it's supposed to be your busiest time of the year. These are all reasons why you should consider conducting a brand audit. However, you might be sitting here thinking that you have a pretty good return on your marketing investment and maybe your business is doing pretty well. That's great and that's awesome. High five. But you aren't immune to needing a brand audit either. And let me share why. So I work with plenty of small businesses that have a good return on their investment, ROI, on their marketing efforts, but their brand was not solid. For example, their brand grew really quickly before they had a solid brand strategy, or their visual identity, like maybe their logo or their color palette, wasn't specifically clear because their internal strategy was poor and they were not consistent in their branding efforts. For example, maybe they were using different fonts, different variations of logo, different messaging. I think we've all seen that before where maybe there was a different variation of a logo on a banner versus on a letterhead versus in an email signature. We've probably all worked in an organization or a business where everyone had a different email signature at one point. So those are all examples of inconsistent branding efforts. I've also worked with businesses who built websites very early on in their existence, and then their business grew, and then their website didn't properly reflect their brand. I saw this happen a lot during COVID, during the pandemic. So if any of this sounds familiar to you, then I think it's important that you consider a brand audit. So I keep saying brand audit, brand audit. What exactly is a brand audit? Let's learn more on the next slide. A brand audit is a process that I use with my clients to analyze how a brand is performing in the market and against the competition. I consider it to be an analytical strategy that studies the aspects that make up the brand. And these include key points like the target market and the ideal customer, the overall strategy and goals, visual messaging and storytelling through marketing efforts, advertising strategies linked to marketing goals, customer experience and success, brand awareness, and positioning in the marketplace. So to really dive into what all of these aspects mean, we're going to do a little exercise. So in the packet that I provided to go along with this presentation is a SWOT analysis. Conducting a SWOT analysis as part of your brand audit is a really great way to find out some things in your business that are doing well while others are not. It's also used to pinpoint the strengths and weaknesses of your brand. So I once read that a brand audit is kind of like a course of antibiotics. Taking it halfway or doing it halfway might help, but the effects won't last unless you finish it. So I recognize that conducting a SWOT analysis might be a little bit basic. Maybe some of you did this when you started your business or putting together a business plan, whatever it might be. But when you think about it in terms of marketing, you can really start to reveal some important factors affecting your business. You can do the following by using a SWOT analysis. So think about this that came in the packet or the quadrants on the screen. By using a SWOT analysis, you can understand your company better. You can identify weaknesses. You can avoid threats. You can capitalize on opportunities. You can take full advantage of strengths, and you can develop attainable business goals and strategies. So let's take a few minutes to think about the SWOT analysis for your brand and your marketing efforts. So in the SWOT analysis, there are 4 quadrants: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. On the second page, I provided some examples of possible threats, possible weaknesses, potential opportunities, and possible threats. That way, as you walk through the SWOT analysis, it'll give you some examples and things that you can think about as you fill out the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Some possible strengths that you can consider are marketing expertise on the team. Maybe you have someone that you work with within your business that is pretty great at marketing, or you have a pretty innovative product or service. Maybe the location of your business is convenient for your customers, or you have a really solid brand reputation. It's recognized because of its high quality, or it's been around for a long time and it's got great, just got a really great brand reputation. Those are possible strengths. So think about that and take a moment to write that down. And if you don't have this printed out, no worries. Grab a piece of paper, draw a T across the paper, and in the top left, write down a couple of strengths. Weaknesses, not as fun as strengths, but important to consider. Some examples of weaknesses: not having a clear product differentiation compared with competitor offerings. So that's certainly a weakness. Maybe your distribution isn't as strong as your competitors, or you don't have enough online presence. I'm certain that everyone could put that down as a weakness. Not having enough online presence, even if you are on all of the platforms, we can always still do better. So maybe we should all write that one down under weaknesses. Potential opportunities. Perhaps there's a certain type of technology or platform that you use or could use to help your business. That could be an opportunity. Growing demand from new markets. Maybe there's a product or service that you can offer that is an opportunity for your business. Another opportunity is using social media sites to reach new customers. I think that's also one that we can all put under opportunities, using social media to reach new customers. So why don't we all grab our pen and write that down for opportunities? Whether or not we're already on social media, it's still always going to be an opportunity for all of us. Lastly, and again, not quite as fun, are the threats. Some possible threats are competitors might introduce better products or services at lower prices. That could be a threat. Changes in economic environment might reduce customer loyalty to established brands. Another possible threat: changes in customer tastes or fashions. Those could also be problems and threats. So I don't want this to be something that you breeze through. I want you to take a little bit of time to think about this. And that's why I offer some of these templates and worksheets for me to give you a little bit of a taste of it during this presentation, but really a chance to think about these concepts and take some time to write your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats down, and get to thinking about them as we move further into this presentation and as you go back and work on some of these concepts back at your business. So think about the SWOT analysis, important foundation, key step, point number one, as we work through our increasing our brand awareness. The next thing we're going to work on is a brand audit survey. Now that we've gotten to know our businesses a little bit better through the SWOT analysis, understanding our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, now it's time for us to brainstorm what needs to be analyzed. Maybe it's your website, or it's your social media efforts. Maybe it's a little bit of everything. And that's where the brand audit survey comes in. That's the next handout in the packet that I provided with the webinar. It's called the brand audit survey. Let's take a few minutes to think through some of the questions in this brand audit survey to help us brainstorm your brand. This is an internal survey that you can complete on your own. However, it's also a good exercise to take back and share with others in your business as well. Then compare notes on what others think within your business. Then you can compile all of the results and use this data to help you conduct a brand audit. I made it easy for you to be able to print a couple copies out or to be able to ask questions if you hold staff meetings with others in your business. Some of the questions include, what do users find when they search for our brand on search engines? That's a great thing to ask other people within your business as well, because if you're searching for it all the time, then what you find and what pops up might be different from what other people find and pop up on their own search engines. Is your website easy to navigate? And is it good at converting? Meaning, are you finding what you need to find, when you need to find it, where you need to find it? Are your emails being opened? Are your links being clicked? You might not know the answers to that. And that's something that if you don't know the answer to it, then you need to find it. So that's a point to consider. What do people think of your brand? Do you have good customer feedback or testimonials to help answer those questions? Is your visual branding coherent with your messaging? Does your logo really represent us? That's a great question to ask others within your business, especially if it's something that you're really close to. Hearing from others could be very helpful. Are your storytelling efforts fruitful? Meaning, are the stories that you're telling, do you get good engagement when you tell those stories? If you post a story on social media or you share a blog post on your website, are people responding through likes or comments or shares? Are you advertising through the optimal advertising channels? Maybe you don't know the answer to that. So that's something to dive into and really consider, are you getting a good return on your investment in that advertising? Maybe you're not advertising at all. So that's certainly one to circle and come back to. Are your products selling? And that's something to think about if you have a brick and mortar. Is it selling in the business? Is it online, or is it selling online? Are there certain products that sell more online versus within the brick and mortar? Things to consider. Thinking about packaging. Is the packaging of your products, if you're selling physical products, representative of your brand values? Give an example of how it is or how it is not. Do your employees recommend your business to their friends and their family? Are your customers recommending you? And lastly, I throw this question into this survey just because I think it's helpful. Do your employees feel proud to work with you? Because your employees are an extension of your brand and they speak on behalf of your brand mission and your values. And so that is an important note to consider when you think about your brand and auditing your brand. And so that's why I threw it into this survey. So more questions to ask you. I like to challenge you and thank you. Have you think of all of these questions as you go through and you audit your business and your brand, and all in an effort to really boost your brand strategy and your marketing efforts. The third point we're going to talk about is reviewing your digital presence. So how effectively is your digital presence targeting your intended market? Use your social media analytics to examine how well your social media marketing is working. For example, website analytics. They assess things like, where is your web traffic coming from? If all your web traffic is coming from one or two sources, then you're vulnerable to changes from these sources. So it's important to diversify. By that, I mean, if all of your web traffic is coming from just Facebook and maybe just Instagram, and the Facebook platform fails, and where is your traffic going to come from? So it's important to try to drive direct traffic to your website. So really sharing your direct URL to your website. Maybe you don't even have a website. So that's something to think about really working on. Is your website attracting your target market? More traffic is only valuable to your website if it's the right kind of customer, your target audience. Bounce rate. If you've ever looked at your website analytics before and you see bounce rate, what that means is if people leave a page right away, that means that they're not finding the information that they're looking for. So maybe if you're seeing a high bounce rate, it's time to take a moment, use that brand audit survey. Think about what people are coming to your website for, what they're reading, what they're seeing, assess the content, reevaluate the content, refresh the content, and see if that helps keep people on the page a little bit longer. For some of you, you might not have the answers to these questions. That's why I'm sharing another template for you, the Digital Existence Checklist, for you to go through all of your digital platforms and dive into your brand identity and come up with a strategy if you're finding after your review that you're missing the mark in some areas. So I'm going to show you how to fill out this digital existence checklist. The first column is the platform. So the platform could be anything digital. So Facebook, Instagram, some people use Twitter, TikTok, Snapchat, Google My Business, Yelp. There's so many, we could go on and on for days, but that's where you would put the platform in each of these cells all the way down the column. Now, your identity on each of these platforms is going to be a little bit different based on your target audience. For example, I have clients that are seeing a different audience viewing their content on Facebook versus on Instagram. They're noticing when they look at the analytics that the demographics are a little bit different on Facebook versus Instagram. So they're starting to skew the content that they push out on Facebook versus Instagram. Even when it comes down to the description of their business on Facebook versus Instagram, of course, they're not going to post a different description for their business on either one or the other. It's going to be the same, but maybe tweaked just a little bit different so that it meets the customer where they're at. A little bit younger customer on Instagram versus Facebook, and maybe more photos, a more casual tone on Instagram, those types of things. So thinking about your platform, what platform is it? What's your identity on that platform? And then what's your strategy? Who are you targeting on that platform? Another example is Google My Business. That's really a catch-all. You're not exactly sure who is going to come there. It could be anyone, everyone. And so your identity on there is going to be pretty general. And the strategy is going to be very open. It's going to be making sure that you have all of the information about your business there. The strategy on that is making sure that no one has any further questions, that they can get anything they need from your Google My Business profile. Your Instagram, like I said, maybe the identity is geared more towards a little bit of a younger demographic, and your strategy is a little more casual, heavy on photos, and you incorporate a link in your bio to be able to share links back to your e-commerce platform. Those are just some examples of platform, identity, and strategy. And because I know that there might be questions that come up, my contact information is on the bottom, and you're welcome to shoot me an email if you have any questions as you're filling this out. I'm happy to help you out with this, but I think this is very important as you review your digital presence. The next item is questioning your customers. So we've heard from our internal partners as we worked on our brand audit survey We started diving in deeper to learn about our customers through our digital presence and that checklist that we just worked on. Now it's really important before we move forward to hear from external partners. Those are your customers. So you should consider creating a survey to conduct with your customers and people who might have heard of your brand, but maybe they aren't repeat customers yet. So it can be easy to rely on web and social media analytics alone, but this isn't going to give you a complete picture. You can conduct surveys by telephone or email or your website or even in person as part of the sales process. But I like to encourage folks to use a mixture of quantitative and qualitative feedback in order to provide a more rounded view. So understanding the customer experience at each touch point in the sales process is an important part of your brand audit and your marketing strategy. There are plenty of data available and anecdotal customer stories that will help humanize your audit and provide an idea of how people perceive your brand. And they also can help uncover answers to questions that can't easily be told by data, statistics, and things like that. So guess what? I have another worksheet. I have another template for you. This one is called the Customer Survey, and it is an external. So the one we did before, the brand audit survey, that was an internal one. This is the external one. This is fuel for you to survey your customers or your hopefully soon to be potential new repeat customers. And I break it down for you into 4 parts: cognitive, emotional, descriptive, and action-based experiences. And don't let these categories overwhelm you or confuse you. I break it down bullet points to help describe what each of these concepts mean. Cognitive questions uncover concepts and associations that a customer connects with your brand. So using open-ended or multiple choice word lists can be really helpful for this. Emotional, these are the types of questions that will help you gauge the emotional connection a customer feels with your brand. They can be subtle ways of analyzing that customer's brand loyalty and trust. So those are really important questions to ask. Descriptive, what kind of language do customers use when describing your brand to others? Another great type of question to ask. The open-ended questions are usually great for this type of category. And so what I try to do in this customer survey is give you the type of question to ask so that you're setting yourself up for the right kind of response when you ask these questions. And lastly, action-based experiences. This is asking your customers about maybe positive and negative experience. It's hard to ask about negative experiences, but it's important to know these too, especially when it comes to learning more about the performance of your sales team, your customer service team, your frontline employees, or maybe functions of your e-commerce if you have an online store. Action-based experience questions are really great, an important part of your brand. Page 2 of this worksheet in the packet that came along with the webinar are example questions that you can ask your customers, that you can ask prospects and leads, and I even put a few that you could ask potential employees as well. Some questions are you familiar with our products and services? How did you discover our brand? How would you describe our products to a friend? How likely are you to recommend our brand to a friend? Let's see, how did you become aware of our brand and products and services that we offer? What was your first impression when you interacted with our company for the first time? So all sorts of questions that you could ask. They could be face-to-face. You know, I work with a lot of farmers that go to farmers markets, and we often work on asking a question at each farmers market, some type of feedback that they can take and then use as they work on their businesses and potentially scaling up their businesses. And so thinking about questions to ask, coming back to this worksheet, considering questions for customers based on these 4 factors, cognitive, emotional, descriptive, and action-based, are really great in developing your brand and helping you with your marketing efforts. Before we move on to the next point in the presentation, I want to check the chat and make sure there haven't been any questions, or if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask them or pop on.
Would it be fair, I guess, or valid in this 4 factors that you've listed to ask your customer, basically, how do we fare against the competition?
Sure. I think that's something that you could ask. You could certainly finesse the question a little bit, but then again, it depends on who you're asking and the situation, but certainly.
Because you might get a brutally honest answer too.
You might, or again, it depends on the person answering it. Some people might avoid or dance around it, but if you can be pretty pointed with the question, like if you are comparing your product and the competitor's version of your product, something like that could be easy to get a good response back. So I could certainly see that working. One of the things in the farmers market world, to go back to that, is when we do farmers markets or pop-up shops, or even at the booths at some of these markets, I've seen vendors do dot surveys where they ask questions, and so they don't have, if the business owner is maybe a little less confident asking the questions to start with, they'll do a dot survey where they'll ask the question on a whiteboard, or have it on a foam core board, and people will put stickers for their answers. That's another way to do it, where they can ask some questions, survey their customers without having to do it face to face. That might be a nice way to ease into questioning the customers without having to do it face to face. So another option to think of. Cool. Anyone else? All right, we'll move on to number 5, which is analyzing your brand identity. And this is my favorite of all of the slides, my favorite checklist, my favorite handout, and the final step in my brand audit. And that is to examine your visual and verbal brand identity. So we've been leading up to this as we've been going through the steps in this webinar, and you've probably started to nail down your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, as I've challenged you with some of these questions, and to think about your digital existence, to think about talking to your customers, to think about talking to your staff and the people within your business. Hopefully you've started to identify some goals, which we will talk about in the next slide, so I don't want to jump too far ahead, but now it's time to connect the dots with how all of this interacts with your brand identity. So first off, the visual identity analysis examines the logos, the colors, typography, which is like your font and the style of font that you use, and imagery utilized by each of your competitors. The verbal identity analysis examines the linguistic content of each of your competitors with the goal of distilling insights as to the messaging and the brand and the style and the tone of voice. So knowing what your competitors does, what each of your competitors does, what you do, and using all of this information that you've gathered to really do an audit of your strengths, your weaknesses, and how you stack up against others. This is a checklist that I challenge businesses to use at least annually, especially businesses that are just starting out or are introducing a new product into the marketplace, or are rebranding or are expanding their business. Brand audit checklist is really important. And I'm going to go through some key parts of this to help explain what this checklist is all about. Your brand description is a short paragraph or less description of your business. Short, succinct, to the point, something that if you were to meet me at an event and I said, tell me about your business, you could rattle that off without taking a breath, and I could walk away knowing exactly what your business does without any questions. So think about how you can easily describe your business. That is your description. Write that down and keep that somewhere. Your mission, why is it that your business does what it does? And what are your values? And with your values, bullet point those out. It doesn't have to be a long, drawn out paragraph. I like them to be bite-sized pieces that you can use in your marketing efforts. Your elevator pitch, that's an even shorter, even more succinct version of your description. That is, give me one sentence, maybe two, of what it is that you do. Your brand style, are you casual? Are you, I work with a lot of med tech startups. They have a very distinct brand style. I worked with a pediatric medical device company. That was a very specific brand style versus another med tech company that worked with prosthetics. So you can see there's different brand styles that we work with. In the farmers market world, we're pretty casual and we like to use a lot of puns in our content. And so it's a very fun brand style. I think as business owners, it's important to understand your why, because you're doing this day in and day out. You live, eat, breathe, sleep. That is your business. So understanding your why. Your target audience, vitally important. I work with a lot of restaurants. My favorite thing to ask restaurants is who their target audience is as we start to dive into their social media efforts. And my favorite response is people that eat. And that doesn't fly with me. Everybody eats. That's great. But let's dive further into the audience of people that eat, and funnel it down to really come in with a key set of audiences that we can market to. Also for brand, your tagline, you don't always have to have a tagline. Sometimes your business name is descriptive enough that you don't need to have a tagline. They're optional. I don't stress over businesses needing to have one. That's why I market optional. But I just want to put that out there as something to consider. So those are the components in your brand audit checklist for your brand. Your brand elements are your logo, alternative logos. What I mean by that is I think that it is necessary that you have a logo that is vertical, a logo that is horizontal, a logo that is square, and then a logo that is just an icon. There are uses for all of these alternative logos, depending on whatever format you're needing your logo for. Say you're a sponsor for an event. Many times there's a community event happening and there's a really big poster and the bottom half is dedicated to all of the sponsor logos and they're all mishmashed on there. There's a group that I work with and they want just horizontal logos, so everything stacks up appropriately. Or for social media, you have a circle for your profile picture, but if you have a horizontal logo, you're gonna have all this white space above and below it. So having a nice square logo will take up more real estate in that circle and look a whole lot nicer. So you can see there's lots of uses for alternative logos. Having a consistent color palette is really helpful. Whether you're making a sign that goes on the side of the road or a banner that goes inside of a business, or for your business cards, or for your website or your social media, having consistent color palettes, fonts, patterns, icons, imagery, all of that consistency helps your customer recognize your brand. It builds certainly strength in your brand's reputation, and it just looks really nice and professional. I like to put all of these components from the top of the page, from brand all the way down to imagery, into what I call brand guidelines. That's this point right here under brand elements. It's basically another sheet that has a place for you to list all of these things on a piece of paper that you can pin to the wall and make it easy to access all the time. That you can share with a designer if there's someone helping you with your marketing efforts, with your design efforts, that you can easily access and have so that you are consistent in all of your branding efforts. Moving on to advertising, go through and assess your advertising. You might not do all of these things, but go through and think about TV, radio, digital, social media, any kind of print that you do, outdoor advertising, sponsorships. Make a list of all of these things and assess whether or not they're working. When's the last time that you did them? How often do folks come and approach you for them? The cost to do them. Think about all of this in your audit. Brand assets. These are things that include business cards, note cards, letterhead, envelopes, stickers, flyers, postcards, packaging, shipping material, signage. All of these things can be branded and pretty easily branded these days. A lot of do-it-yourself branding, super easy with different types of labels that you can get at the office supply store and print on your own, or send to some great printers in town or even online. But making sure that take an audit of all of the boxes and stuff that you have in your office and make sure that they all look the same. And if they don't, perhaps recycle them and try to save up to get some new ones so that you are consistent in how everything looks. If you have any videos, make sure that they're up to date, or if you use any kind of newsletters or e-newsletters, that those are also branded and up to date. Case studies may not apply to all of the businesses involved in this webinar, but if you use any type of case study or testimonial, that all of those are relevant to your brand, that they match your brand style, and that they are a reflection and extension of your mission and your values. If you do any type of direct mail, I have clients that do a lot of direct mail. I thought direct mail maybe might not be as popular anymore, but that certainly, my idea on direct mail changed during the pandemic, and I've seen some great return on their investment with direct mail. Definitely extension of their brand. And we went through and made sure that everything that we send out is certainly an extension of their logo, their color, their pattern, imagery, all of that. Website and social media. We went through a digital existence checklist already, but making sure that everything is up to date, from your profile image to your cover image. If you've already wrote a good description, making sure that you've added that to your social media, that you have a good grasp on your passwords, that you can access all of your platforms. That's very important. Make sure that that's part of your checklist, is making sure that you can access everything. One question that people usually ask me about this brand audit checklist is under website favicon. That's the teeny tiny little icon logo that comes up in the search bar, the URL in the top left-hand corner when you go to a website. It's like the tiny little logo of whatever company or whose website you're visiting. You can actually put that on your website so that when people go to your website, it's right there. So that's what a favicon is. Lastly on this checklist is customer experience. Invoices, proposals, those can be branded, and those can be an extension of your brand and part of your marketing efforts. So whether you use QuickBooks or you create your own invoices or proposals, make sure your colors are on there and your logos are on there. Media kit. I love media kits. A media kit is basically a folder, one-stop shop that you could give to a reporter or to any organization that promotes other businesses, that has some talking points about your business. So that's where your description and your mission and values come into play, where you have some of your logos that they'd be able to use, where it has some nice photos of your business. Basically, it's a folder that gives that media person free reign to use whatever is in there to promote your business. And having that you can easily email out to someone makes it super helpful when you are trying to get publicity, free publicity, or make it on a television news program in the afternoon or evening, or a radio show, or any of those things. Email account signature line, very important that they're all consistent. If you have more than one person with emails in your business, making sure that they all match. And promotional merchandise. Sometimes it's useful to have these things, especially as events are becoming more and more common again, as businesses opening back up. Branded promotional merchandise is another opportunity to extend your brand. So I like to use this as a checklist with my businesses to go through one by one and make sure that you are, in a good place with your brand, that your marketing efforts are fruitful, and that you're consistent in what you're doing. Sorry, there we go. Our last and number 6 item of our brand, increasing our brand awareness, is goal setting. So we've talked about our SWOT analysis. We've brainstormed topics that further revealed some truths about our brand. I've challenged you to go through every little bullet point aspect of your brand, of your business, through the checklist just now. And so now it's time to set some goals. And yep, guess what? There's another worksheet for that. So now it's time to set some goals for your brand. And depending on what you want to achieve, the ultimate goal can be wide and far reaching, or it can be really specific. So think back to some of the exercises and these templates that I've thrown on to you, and think about some major points that stuck out. Whatever it is, pinpoint what you want out of the brand audit and start getting organized thinking about your goal. What's the motivation behind that goal? What are the actions that you want to take? And what is the deadline to complete each action? So that's why I have it set up like this, where maybe write some of your goals down. And what's the motivation behind the goal? What are some of the actions that you plan to take? And what are your deadlines associated with that? For example, I have a business that's launching a new product, and that is their goal. Launch the new product. I won't get into all of the details, but their motivation, launch the new product, actions to take. They have a whole lot of actions to take, but they have a specific deadline in that they're going to have an open house when they launch that new product. So they're going to write their deadline right here and work backwards from that. And I'm one of those types of people where I'm deadline oriented, and I set a date for myself of, all right, this is my goal, and this is why it's my goal, and this is my deadline. And so I'm going to work backwards from there and make sure that I hit all of these points in order to get there. Another goal that you might have is I am working with a business that's going to attend a farmer's market for the first time. They have a business that makes handcrafted soaps. And so they're attending their first farmer's market in May. And their goals are to create a really nice display, to create really nice packaging, to create a Facebook, to create an Instagram. So those are all of their goals and their motivations behind those goals. That's what we're working on right now. We know that there are specific actions that they need to take that obviously come with deadlines that are working their way up to making it to that market. So those are some examples that I share with you of how to complete this goal setting sheet. But there has to really be a reason behind everything that you're doing with your brand. And you need to be specific in your plans and what you're trying to accomplish. And your to-do list will be based on these brands and goals that you set. So I hope this is something that you can make multiple copies of over time for different goals that you have throughout the year, or throughout your business and your marketing efforts, or as you start to really dive into your brand audit. All right. So in the end, a brand audit really is useless if you don't devise an action plan for the issues that we've highlighted today. The purpose of a brand audit is to identify any actions your company needs to take to strengthen its brand. So your key findings should be paired with a detailed action plan and steps to execute. If you don't carve out time to assess your brand within the larger and wider context on a regular and ongoing basis, you might end up meeting last year's goals only to realize the goalpost has significantly shifted. So keep in mind that continually monitoring progress on goals doesn't mean you can skip the audit next year. After all, a lot can happen in a year. We've all seen that during COVID. Those internal changes and external shifts may require further review and adjustment. So keep your eye on those goals. And don't ever forget that you can always ask for help. That's why I put my email and phone number at the bottom of every page. And put it here too, just in case you have any questions. And we have a few minutes left too, if you have any questions today.
Natalie, this is Susan, and I know everything that you've talked about certainly applies to all of the Create sector businesses that we have throughout the 6 states. It applies to the individual businesses, but I really think everything that you're talking about really applies to regional branding as well. So any tips that you have for those of us who are kind of working in those regions or kind of working regionally as partners to think about how we can connect maybe the brand for the region, such as ours here in southernmost Illinois, where it's Shawnee Forest Country, how we can connect that to the businesses, any way to kind of link those things together.
Ooh, I feel like that's a trick question. That's a loaded question. I think I've always felt like having almost like a I would call it a sales sheet, but like a sales sheet with some talking points and things that you can use collaboratively in your content development and creation that any other organization or partner organization can run with, that uses consistency in whatever it is that you're putting out, whether it be social media posts or opportunities for blog posts, topics to talk about that are consistent. So if you have an audience that follows you or hears your messaging across these different organizations, they're hearing a repetitive message. So having something that people can use and share and be able to incorporate. One example I have is there is a group that I work with that's comprised of 12 different organizations. This coalition works on promoting local food, restaurants, agritourism across the state of Illinois. And so what we've come up with is a content calendar across 12 months. And we have a different topic that we talk about each month. We highlight a different business in a different part of the state. We give a whole list of optional social media posts that people can copy and paste and put out on Facebook, on Instagram. It comes with graphics that are already sized for Facebook and Instagram. It's almost like a little media kit that's ready to go for each month. There's a blog post that can be shared. It usually includes the business's website on there as well. But we try to get everyone involved and encourage all of the coalition members to share across all of their platforms, in their own newsletters, on their social media. All of us are tagging that business on our social media as well, but everything is in consumable bite-sized nuggets that are copy paste. So whether there is a social media person on staff at any of these organizations or not, anybody can pretty much copy and paste it into the platform, tag the people involved, and press send. And then we do that every single month. I'm sure that we could do it more often, but once a month is a good, safe amount for right now, baby steps.
Thank you, Natalie. And sorry, I didn't mean that to be a trick question.
Oh,
I'm
no,
just
it's
kind of
fine.
thinking, as we're working in these regions, how we can get, the communities and the businesses kind of all rowing in the same direction and kind of, get them on the same message. I think that's one of the issues I think we struggle with here.
Oh, for sure. And it's, you're not alone in that question, in that need. I see that in other organizations that I work with.
Thank you.
Don't feel bad, Natalie. She throws trick questions at me all the time.
Okay, good. Thank you. Any more trick questions?
Natalie, I was going to ask for lots of business owners who are doing all of the social media management themselves, it might feel a smidge overwhelming about knowing where to start. And I think your guide is perfect, showing us those different steps, particularly with online marketing, in this age post-COVID. Is there a platform that you suggest that they start with and then build off of, or and I hope that's not a trick question either.
No, it's fine. I think that what I've noticed is the tendency is that people try to really bite off more than they can chew. And my goal with anyone is consistency. Mm-hmm. And I usually step into helping a business, and they have like way more social media profiles than any one business should have. Because if you're not consistent with it and someone shows up to it and you haven't posted on it for a while, then the person that arrives there is going to wonder, is this business even still around? Are they even on the up and up? And so I recommend 2 social media profiles max. And if you have somebody on staff dedicated to social media, then sure, consider more. But 2 is usually the route to go. And generally I say Facebook and Instagram. Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube still this past year have been the top performers on average. Of course, we see TikTok surging to the top, but there are components of Instagram like Reels that you can use that are competitive to like TikTok without having to start a whole new platform. And so if a business owner is interested in starting new platforms, why not take a step back and see if there's functions of the current platforms that you're already using that you could take advantage of instead of starting something brand new. And so one of the presentations that I did with a group of nursery owners and landscape architects was how to use Reels. And we went through and we put together Reels because we were trying to convince them, don't do more as you go into the growing season, like try new, new features of current platforms. So I would stick with Facebook and Instagram. Another reason why is because you can schedule on these platforms, and that makes it a whole lot easier. I use a third-party scheduler to help me that also comes with a whole lot of other bells and whistles, like giving me analytics and insights and things like that. But really, Facebook, the business suite has increased its capabilities to try to be competitive with some of these third-party platforms. And being able to schedule even a couple of posts a week really takes the pressure off of a business owner that's doing it all themselves. You can even schedule stories. They're not going to be as engaging and fun as doing them of the moment from your phone, but there are opportunities to be able to do some cool things and get them off your plate and move on.
Thank you. Yeah, that's super helpful. We found through some of the data we've collected that lots of business owners are overwhelmed with having to take on social media as well. And it's something that's really easily transferable to an employee once it is planned out and scheduled, and that like awesome content, worksheet that you demonstrated and stuff too. And I think you bring up a good point about analytics, being able to utilize and look at the data from these online marketing efforts is really beneficial, because if it's not working, don't spend your time doing it anymore.
Yes. Yep. Yes, I agree. I could go on and on even further about social media. It's its own whole separate webinar, I think. But I do a lot of content planning, and I think the most important thing is being proactive instead of reactive. And I find that business owners that also are the social media coordinators for their business are often reactive. They're forgetting that, Easter is in 2 weeks. We need to post now about our lunch specials or brunch that day. It seems like content planning falls by the wayside when it comes to also being the business owner. They wear too many hats. They don't have enough time.
For sure. Thank you. Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions for Natalie? Well, I want to be respectful of everyone's time. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. My final ask is that you utilize the chat function to drop in what you have as the biggest takeaway from this awesome session that Natalie has presented for us. We're going to use this as our sort of evaluation and reflection. So please go ahead and drop that in. And thank you so much for being here today. We do really, really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.